Hi friends, this is Richa and I welcome you to my channel Read the World Education Tutorials. I hope all of you are doing wonderful, and today I'm going to begin a series on a very interesting topic, which is commonly confused words. Words that sound similar but have different functions can be confusing for English learners, for people in general, and also for native speakers. So it is important to identify the difference between the words that can be confusing because they sound similar. And today we will target the difference between one of the most commonly confused pair of words, which is difference between advice and advice. So let's get started. First, let's take a look at the definition of the word advice. Advice is a recommendation about future action. Now, we need to identify the part of speech here. It is very important to understand the context of the situation, the context of the sentence in which you use the words, and for that, you have to identify the part of speech for the word. So, what do you think advice is? By looking at the definition of this word, what do you think it is? Is it a noun, a verb, an adverb, a pronoun, or which part of speech is it? So, guys, it's a noun because it's a suggestion about future action, it's a recommendation. There is no reference to an action here. It's a simple noun. And if you look at the second definition, the word advise means to recommend a course of action, to inform. So in this case, the word means to recommend a course of action. It talks about an action and hence it's a verb. Now you will have to identify how the word is placed in a sentence. Is it playing the role of a noun or is it playing the role of a verb to be able to choose and use the right word and not get confused between these two words? I will help you with an example. If I was to say, here is some advice, always smile. In this case, the word advice is being used as a noun. There is no reference to an action. An action is not being talked about. It's a simple suggestion that is being talked about. And and I'm saying here is some advice, always smile. There is no action involved here. It's a suggestion. Hence it's a noun and that is why we use the word advice. However, if I was to say the same sentence which would mean the same thing but use the word advise, how we could have said it. Let's take a look at that. Let me advise you, always smile. In this case, there is an action involved here because you are taking an action of advising somebody, you are taking an action of giving a recommendation to somebody that one should always smile. And hence, the correct word here would be advise because it is playing the role of a verb here. If you can identify this difference, you will never get confused between advice and advice. So this is the first step that you need to take to be able to solve this confusion. Now let's take a look at the second example. Please advise if all looks good. In this case, again an action is involved because you are requesting somebody to give a recommendation if all looks good. And hence the correct word is advise, because an action is requested here. Please advise. If all looks good, you are requesting somebody to give you a suggestion, to give you a recommendation if everything looks okay, if everything looks good. And hence the correct word becomes advise. Now let's take a look at some examples. In the next section, I'm going to give you some sentences and we will try and pick the correct word by trying to identify what role the word is going to play in the sentence, whether the word would be placed as a verb or as a noun, and depending on that, we'll choose the correct word. Now let's begin with the exercise. The first sentence is you should ask your elders to advise you or advise you. What do you think is the correct word in this sentence? So the correct word is advise because here an action is being talked about. You should ask your elders to take an action of giving a recommendation to you, of making a suggestion to you. of advising you. And that is why the correct word is advice. I advised him or advised him to talk to you about the issue that he has been facing. What do you think is the correct word? How is the word placed? So the correct word is advised, because again in this sentence there's an action being talked about. You have taken an action of giving a recommendation to somebody to talk to somebody about the issue. So again, the word is advised because it's a verb. It is being talked about as an action. One more important thing I want to highlight here, there is no word as advice. This is not a word, it does not exist, so never ever use it. Let's take a look at the last example. The advice or advice was given to the president so that there is no delay. Now, what do you think is the correct word in this sentence? Is it advice or advice? Guys, in this sentence, there's no action being talked about. There is an existing piece of information, existing piece of recommendation that was given to the president so that there is no delay, but there is no action of actually giving that recommendation as at that point in time. So there's an existing piece of advice that was given to the president so that there is no delay. And hence the correct word would be advice because it is placed as a noun in this sentence. One tip that I want to give you is that you should always try to understand the context of the sentence in which you use the word to avoid errors. You should try to identify how the word is placed in a sentence. Is it placed as a noun or is it placed as a verb? What is the role that word is playing in that sentence? How is it being talked about? What is the context of the sentence? And if you are able to catch and identify the difference between a noun and a verb, the difference between advice and advice, then you'll always end up using the right word. I hope that the confusion is not there anymore and you are clear on the difference between advice and advice. Thanks for watching the video. If you like the content on my channel, do consider subscribing to it. This is Richa signing off for now. Guys, stay safe and make it a good day. Bye bye.